I need to issue a correction, so stay tuned for that. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. So, a couple of days ago, I told a story about how this story in Doctor Who was one of my very first experiences, and it was from the novelization, which was called The Doomsday Weapon. Now, I believe I mentioned that one and Loch Ness Monster were both books where the titles were changed for the American release, and I had always just assumed that was the case. I knew that the title was different than the original broadcast story, and I just assumed for whatever reason when they were making the novels in the US, they thought that Colony in Space wouldn't sell, but Doomsday Weapon would. Well, as it turns out, I was, and I know my wife will be astonished to hear this, I was wrong. You hear that, honey? I was wrong. I was wrong. So, the novelization of this story has always and ever been titled The Doomsday Weapon, from the very first time it was released as one of the original Target novelizations in the UK back in the mid-70s. The novelization was written by Malcolm Hulke, who also wrote the screenplay for the entire story. And although the broadcast story was only ever called Colony in Space, although in pre-production I believe it had a temporary title of just Colony, but clearly Hulke felt that the title, The Doomsday Weapon, was more evocative and more interesting as the title of the book, and that's what they went with. Also, interestingly, because that was one of the very first Target novelizations, and because at the time they certainly didn't expect to adapt and novelize every single story in the series' history, the way the book was written, it was implied that this was Jo Grant's very first adventure with the Doctor, despite the fact that on the show she had been there for the entire season and had been on multiple adventures. And so there are several points in the story where things are slightly rewritten, and one of those, of course, is the big reveal when the Master shows up. In the broadcast version, Jo Grant recognizes him immediately. In the novelization, she has no idea that the Adjudicator is not the Adjudicator. It's only the Doctor who recognizes him as the Master. And there are a couple other minor changes in it as well. With all that being said, I haven't actually read that novelization since around 1979, so my memories of it are just a tiny bit hazy. As for the complete story itself, I alluded yesterday how it resonated with events currently unfolding in the US today, but there's also another dimension of the story. The original intended allegory of the story by the writer was for the story to be a commentary on the colonization of North America by European settlers, and the interaction between the settlers and the indigenous peoples, and a conflict between the settlers who were there seeking a new life and the mining expeditions who were there to reap as much of value out of the New World as possible to pipeline it back to England and to Europe. So really, for a children's story, there is quite a lot going on here, and a lot of really interesting shades of gray and internal conflicts, and on that level, I really, really do think it works. This does continue to stand as one of my favorite Third Doctor stories. Of course, about a half to two-thirds of the Third Doctor stories are my favorite Third Doctor stories, so take that with a grain of salt. Aside from that, I wanted to talk a little bit about my own progress. If you're paying at all attention to the numbers in the opening credits, you will have noticed, I'm sure, that my weight loss progress has kind of gone heavily into reverse. It's one of those things that it's true, and it's also kind of not important. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I took 8 days off from the treadmill and from doing any kind of workout while I was sick with my ear infection and other things. And although that ear infection is fighting to come back right now, and I've started a second round of antibiotics and ear drops and blah, 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 you don't care about any of that, but I mostly feel better. But in any case, during those 8 days, I gained back a lot of weight. The nice thing, if there's a nice thing, about that kind of weight gain, really rapid weight gain in short term, also tends to come right back off, assuming that you get back onto your workout program and keep moving at it. And so the numbers that show in my opening credits, those are the 5-day moving average. And of course, that is trending up and up and up and up because my worst numbers were 3 days ago when I started back on. But of the 7 or so pounds that I gained in that week off, I have already lost back 3.5, 4 pounds of that. And I haven't even weighed myself today, so I don't know what today's number is. But I'm positive I'll be back on the same trajectory. So the fact is that by taking that week off while I was sick, I lost some ground, and I will get back to where I was, and it takes about 2 weeks to kind of get back to where you were. At least for me, in my experience. So watch for those numbers to continue to creep up for 2 more days as the low numbers from the previous week drop off, but then see those numbers rapidly improve again as my mega high numbers from 3 days ago start to drop off. So I expect the numbers to continue to look bad for the next 2 days, and then Sunday, Monday, starting Monday, it should start trending down again, and by Wednesday, it'll be looking totally normal. So, mostly I just want to try and be real about the whole weight loss health thing. I am not a weight loss guru. You should not listen to me at all about any kind of healthy program. I can only tell you my personal experience, which is that with 3+ years on this ridiculous project, I remain really pleased with where I'm at. I continue to feel healthier, certainly, than I did 3 years ago, and I'm very comfortable with the progress I'm making right now and the trade-offs that I make in my day-to-day life to be happy with how I live. So honestly, I think that's the best you can do in life. And on that point, I'm going to quit rambling and call it a day and just say, as always, stay home, stay safe, be kind, be patient, and I will see you tomorrow.